This episode is brought to you by our Dr. Lawrence, psychiatrists. If you're feeling overwhelmed, anxious, or just need to talk, or going through a tough time in your life, get a hold of Dr. Lawrence. You can give him a call or WhatsApp him to book a consultation on 072 149 4655. That's 072 149 4655. Today on the Endure Edge, we're joined by Jesse Pretorius, a hybrid athlete competing in HYROX, endurance running, and cycling. He's also an entrepreneur, podcast host, and someone who's deeply passionate about the connection between physical performance and mental health. From an ex-bodybuilding champion, juggling intense training with running his own business and podcast studio, Jesse is the definition of the word hybrid athlete. Jesse, I had to read that. That's how much great things there are. How's it going?
Bro, thank you for having me. Firstly, I couldn't have written that better if it was me trying to talk about myself, bro. So thank you. I appreciate that.
No, thank you for joining us. And how does it feel being on the other side of a podcast?
I'm pretty sure this is my first time being interviewed, so it does feel different. But the host in me might ask you some questions along the way. We'll see.
Let's go. It's just a casual chat. So this word that's getting thrown around, hybrid athlete. Tell us, what is that? What is a hybrid athlete?
I'm always against labels, if I'm honest. So, like, even when people say influencer, I've got a negative connotation and association to that word. I would say I've got a negative connotation if people say hybrid athletes. And that's all self-imposed. I think it's just because I don't want to be put in a box. But to be put in the hybrid box is at least better than being put in runner or cyclist or bodybuilder, you know? And that's why I did move into the hybrid stuff, was because I was put in this bodybuilding box by myself. And, you know, for me, hybrid is anything. It doesn't have to be everything. It doesn't have to be someone that is competing at a high level within the different aspects, running, cycling, HYROX, whatever. I think it's just anyone that has a passion and loves training and all styles of training.
Am I correct in the most common term for hybrid is normally running and strength?
Yeah, I would say like your Nick Bears.
Okay.
You know, those kind you're
Nick
familiar with him.
Yes, yeah.
So I would say him, someone that does like to hit I would say the primary focus would be you love hitting the gym, but you also do love endurance. So it's someone that, like, I wouldn't put a triathlete in the hybrid box. Okay. I would say a hybrid athlete would maybe be more someone that, you know, still doing their strength work 4 to 5 times a week with running, cycling, whatever endurance stuff they do.
Okay. So there's a stigma that's out there, especially in the running community, that if you're all jacked and have put on all this weight, muscular weight, etc., that it's going to affect your running, and vice versa. Running is going to affect. It's going to destroy the gains that you've gained muscular wise. What is your feeling on that? Like you obviously are doing everything, so you're not being affected. I've seen you with a shirt off. Ladies, go check his Instagram page. JC Seb with a shirt off. Even I'm in love with those abs.
Well, thank you, bro. But no, there's definitely validity to that statement. You know, absolutely, it's not a conducive environment for building muscle if you're constantly, you know, running, you know, up to even, I would say 40 Ks a week is probably still too much if you want to build, you know, a good amount of muscle. But that being said, the strength training we all know is obviously paramount and needs to be in your training if you are a good runner and want to be a good runner. But, you know, I've lost consecutively. I just watched the scale go down, unfortunately. No matter how much weight training I still try to do, but the more endurance and for longer periods of time, because now I think this will be like my 5th year almost, or 4th full year, the end of this year, of, you know, incorporating running and cycling. But yeah, unfortunately, it's going to happen that if you came from primarily focus on trying to build muscle and you incorporate all of this endurance, it's going to happen that you're going to lose muscle because, you know, your body is going to break down that muscle along with obviously burning fat while you're doing your activities, but to fuel yourself to the 100% perfect maximum to the T on an endurance event so that zero muscle is affected, I don't even think that's possible.
Yeah, I also don't think that's possible. I battle so much with fueling. And just after a little 30K long run, I drop 4 or 5 kgs.
Like
a
lot of that would be water.
Yeah.
But I do think that...
But you can see I can't pick up muscle. I've tried everything.
But I mean, you're very tall.
Yeah, so that is the tough part. So hybrid training is brutal on the body, okay? You're training twice a day.
I was just at the Cairo this morning.
There we go. So you're training twice a day sometimes, but how does it affect your mind? Have you ever battled with fatigue, burnout, based on all this training?
I would say because I love training, the burnout will show and rear its ugly head, unfortunately, more with the work aspect. So yes, the training is compounding and adding to that burnout, but I think because I love it so much, there's less negative stigma around it. Whereas if I'm doing all the training and lots of work, I feel like, oh no, it's the work that's adding to the burnout. It's the, long hours of work that's adding to the burnout. Obviously, it's them combined, but I burn out in the work aspect where I just don't want to look at my computer anymore. I don't want to have to edit videos. Whereas, yes, maybe if my body's too sore, I won't want to train, but I still want to train even though I physically feel like I can't. So I haven't fortunately had burnout in that sense where I've like injured myself completely and I can't train and I have to take weeks off. But the burnout I've had is where like there will come a weekend, even if I've got work to do, I'm just like, I can't wrap my head around even looking at this work.
Maybe it's just you just want to train all the time.
because I love it. I don't feel the burnout in that aspect, but I do. I mean, just today I'm resting, but today I woke up, or last night I was going to bed. I was like, okay, well, if I feel like training tomorrow, I will. And I woke up and I'm just like, my body's too sore. I actually can't. Even though I do want to, but I know if I want to improve and I want to get better, I do need to, incorporate rest.
You speak about burnout with your work, being an entrepreneur, having so many interests in the business world. Do you find training helps with that? Personally, I believe that training is medicine for anything mental health related, addiction, depression, anxiety, etc. How do you find your training helps you with that?
My training has stopped me from building any serious health afflicting addictions, for sure. My training has definitely helped me be able to manage the difficulties in work, and it's helped me to be able to cope and to see that, this little difficulty with this client's not real difficulty. I'm subjecting myself to real difficulty through and, open willingness to do it with training. So I'm happy to, subject myself to the difficulty in training, and it's far more difficult than maybe having a difficult conversation with the client. So, puts in the difficulty in life into perspective. I think when you willingly choose something difficult, and then because life's going to throw you difficulties unwillingly that you don't want to face, but because you're willingly subjecting yourself to it, I think it just makes those kind of difficulties a lot easier. So it helps me in a way of, okay, when difficulty arises, I can manage it. And then two, because I'm physically fatiguing myself and making myself tired, I don't have as much energy to look for addictions elsewhere and to maybe get involved in things that aren't positive.
It's very interesting because hearing you say that, a lot of endurance athletes and people who train the way you train and have channeled their addictions, etc., into training, into an endurance sport, they've all got a story. I mean, I just came from Comrades. If you talk to people around you and you say, why are you running today? I had cancer, or I'm running because I was a drug addict or an alcoholic, etc. And you channeled that before you fell off the bandwagon. So I'm finding that very I'm fine. You figured that out. Like,
So
where did that come from?
So I wouldn't say it was as much figured out as it was. I don't think my dad will ever see this. And I don't think I actually really grew up in a militant household, but it was a very strict household. So I feared making mistakes. That was my biggest fear. No matter how much peer pressure there was on me to make a silly decision growing up, maybe getting involved in a particular drug or whatever, or, drinking too much and enjoying it and enjoying the party life, there was more fear on what my dad would do to me if I, went down that route. Because he had people in his life that he saw go down that route, he kind of, really tried to just show a blueprint for what you should do, the best to his abilities. He tried to show us what you should do in life and the decisions you should make. And he was a good role model for me and my brother growing up. And looking back, I'm happy that it was so strict. At the time, I mean, when it's school holidays and your dad's waking up at 5:30, opening up your blinds and be like, go get outside, go do something. So there was a lot of constructive criticism. There was a lot of, encouragement to train. So I think getting into I remember I was probably like 10, 11. Every weekend we'd go to the gym, we'd just swim. But my dad would be like, hey, we're not leaving you until Jesse, you are 10, whatever, you do 60 laps. Rowan, you are 11, you do 80 laps or whatever. So that was like every weekend we'd do that. And then because of school, rugby and all of that, I got into gym. So I think it was there were small seeds that were planted, in my training life from very young. And then I just got addicted to it because fortunately I do have genetics that respond quickly to training. I saw the results and those results were the addiction.
And growing up at school, were you a big sports person?
Yeah, I did most sports. Like I played cricket, touched a little bit on swimming, but rugby was like my main focus.
Okay.
And then a bit of athletics just because I had speed genetics. So running 100 meters, 200s was relatively easy.
Okay. Usain Bolt over here.
Yeah. Well, that's where my dad was always like in a good way, but I hated athletics growing up. My dad's like, well, you're doing it. You're doing well. You're good. You will do this. So like, that's the kind of thing where he was like, I didn't have the opportunity. He was never like living his life through me, because there was events where I had a rugby game. He's like, oh, obviously go play rugby. You don't have to do that event. So it was never trying to force me to be the sprinter or whatever. And he was kind of open to it, but he said, if you start something, if you commit to something, you see it out. So that's why I kind of spread out and did certain sports, because if you sign up at the beginning of the season, there's no quitting.
For sure.
You signed up. But then as the years went on, rugby became my main focus. And then I was able to like stop the swimming, stop the athletics, and then just focus on rugby.
So I asked about the school sport because I've got 3 kids, and someone once told me that if you install those little habits in them now, genetically that will just build for when they get older, and they will automatically want to run. They'll automatically want to, their bodies will be kind of almost used to it, if I'm making sense. And it sounds like that's what happened to you.
Yeah.
You mentioned the name Rowan. Is that your brother?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Is your brother a sports person?
Yeah, my brother, he actually did HYROX earlier in the year. He's done a few bodybuilding shows. Okay. He's now just gotten into like gravity, enduro, cycling. Okay. So it was just because, the way we were brought up, he played provincial hockey in school. So we were always relatively, sounds egotistical to say, but gifted without, having to try as hard as maybe some of the other kids had to try.
No, for sure. There's always that one kid at school.
Yeah.
That kid is the captain of the cricket team, the captain of the rugby team.
See, for me, I was decent at the sport, but I was a terrible leader.
Okay.
So I was never like the captain. I was never.
But you're the opening batsman.
No,
number 3.
So in cricket, I was always more of a bowler. I was a terrible batsman. I was always just trying to hit as many sixes as I could. So cricket-wise, I only continued cricket because there was a tour going to England and I had to continue to be in the team. Okay. And I just made sure that I was in the second team so I didn't have to, play really well or whatever. I can just go have a jaw in England. But then after that tour in grade 11, then I'm like, okay, well, I don't actually enjoy cricket that much. I'm not really talented at it. I can bowl all right. I can maybe once or twice a season get a 50, but other than that, like I wasn't a great cricketer. So it was just rugby that I was, my main focus.
Okay. But it sounds like your dad pressures helped.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
Which I think most kids don't realize that, your dad's putting you under pressure. Your dad's and they look at it going, yes, I hate this, I hate this, I hate this. But when you get to our age, you look back and you go, he didn't do that. I wouldn't be here today.
Yeah. And I think that society has changed so much. I mean, you've obviously got kids now, so you having to parent them in such a different way to what was acceptable back then. Sure. Now on social media, you've got so many things probably saying, if your kid doesn't want to do this, don't make them do this. If don't shout. I mean, I remember, smack your kids, I mean, you can't get in trouble, I assume. But I remember my dad broke a cricket wicket on me when he smacked me once. But I'm all for smacking children. Yeah. I think if you spare the rod, you absolutely spoil the child. If you can get away with something at home, what do you think you're going to get away with, out there in the world?
No, for sure. And I remember you say a cricket wicket. I remember going into the principal's office and he used to hit me with this leather whip cane thing.
Yeah, try to get away with that today. Imagine.
Someone else. It's not even your kid.
Yeah,
you're not even hitting your kid.
Even when I was in school, that wasn't allowed.
Yeah, no.
So it's slowly but surely
I'm giving my age away now.
There's just becoming less and less discipline. And I think certain things are beneficial with how society is changing, but a lot of other things, if we look at, even because there was still that corporal punishment when you were there, it was, how old are you now?
42.
42, okay.
I have to think about that.
Yeah. So you were, you're 20 years younger than my dad, so still a different generation.
Disappeared when I hit high school.
Okay.
Yeah, I was still getting knocked in standard 4, standard 5 by the principal.
Yeah. So, I think that kind of discipline by your parents, I think is fun. Maybe different story at school because you might actually be hitting an innocent child, or you might be hitting them, but then they get home and they get disciplined way worse because their dad's abusive. So there's a lot of other factors that you don't know within, how kids are being treated at home and everything. And what I was talking about in terms of how things are better now and worse in other regards is, I think, this is exactly what this podcast is about. It's about mental health and improving mental health. Try having this conversation when you were in school.
No.
Adults talking the way we're speaking, it wouldn't happen.
Never.
So I think those kind of things are more beneficial. But the more we talk about mental health, the more we are, kind of walking on eggshells around people. Oh no, don't say this, don't show that. So I think that's where maybe it's more negative, is people are too scared to offend people. You can't have real conversations as much. Fortunately, there are still people that have the real conversations. But I think how society's changed now is everyone's just being too sheltered.
For sure. And like you say about the real conversations, the last episode was with Dale, the Prime Circle drummer. And you don't understand.
That was real, bro.
But
that was
you don't
awesome
understand how many people, comrades, people actually stopped me and they're like, they can't believe the Prime Circle drummer was sleeping in front of Hogshead's front door.
And I recently just heard a story this week of someone who took their own life. And obviously it's due to, some sort of, and a lot of pain that they were dealing with, and they weren't able to deal with that pain. But I didn't know them very well. But it just, out of the blue, it's just you actually do not know what people are dealing with.
No, and it's hidden.
Yeah.
It's hidden. And childhood trauma, everything, it all comes from those things.
And I think the biggest thing about childhood trauma is you actually aren't aware of certain traumas that you might have had. Yeah. A lot of it might be, forgetting and your body coping in that kind of way. But I think a lot of it is, I say my dad was strict, but I had a very sheltered upbringing. I was always, there was never money issues. There was never, massive conflict. Obviously I saw my parents have arguments and stuff, but there was never unhealthy conflict in the house. I went to a private school. Their parents were relatively, at least what you could see, obviously who knows what happens behind closed doors, but everyone was, relatively well adjusted to money and to mental health, but you never know.
Yeah.
But they put on the front that everything is okay. You see your friends, yes, people are dealing with things, but you aren't actually aware. But, I even have things that I experienced growing up where they weren't, I would say, traumas as big as, being abused or whatever. But there's traumas where I'll be like, yo, I'm actually acting like this now because of something I witnessed growing up, that even at the time I wasn't like, this is so hectic, I'm being traumatized by this, but it affects you. There's so much. I mean, we are shaped by causes and conditions that happen in our lives. There's obviously genetic predispositions to certain things, but it is impossible to be any other way than what you are. And everything that happened before that has shaped you to be that person, even if you aren't aware of it or not. You know, my talking the way I'm speaking is because of all the causes and conditions that have happened in my life. Yeah. The way you interview people is because of all those causes and conditions that have happened in your life. And I think there's so much that we aren't actually aware of that have shaped us, where it's actually sometimes difficult to look back, because sometimes you can't say like, okay, but am I like this because my dad was like this or my mom was like that? And it's so difficult, but you are in every way shaped by everything that's happened in your life.
Sure. I think it's the first 7 years of your life, and whatever happens in those first 7 years is.
And I mean, we are systems. We are human systems. We are biological as much as, you know, they say there's no bad dog, there's only bad owners. There's no bad people. Not anyone on earth is a bad person. You are shaped by things you've experienced and everything that has happened in your life, and that is the way you are. So like that's, okay, no, that I was going to go on a heavy tangent about the legal system.
No, go for
it. I've been doing a lot of research and, okay, not research, but more just listening to podcasts and listening to talks. And it was mainly just about, a lot of it was to do with free will, and a lot of it had to do with, you know, like the incarceration system and crimes and all of that. And like if a grizzly bear attacked a person, no one's going to be like, yo, that grizzly bear going so against his character, or, you know, that grizzly, like, yes, you'll be like, okay, well, that grizzly bear can't be left in society. We need to maybe put it somewhere.
For sure.
We need to obviously protect people from that grizzly bear, but you're not going to be like, that's so surprising that grizzly bear did that. It's in that grizzly bear's genetic makeup to have made that decision to attack a human. So if we look at people that have committed crimes, it's in their genetic makeup to have made that decision to commit the crime. So yes, we can't forgive and just be like, okay, well, it's in his genetic makeup. It's all the causes and conditions that happened in his life. It's all his experiences, whatever. So it's okay that he did that. Yes, you need to protect people from a dangerous person like that, but you can't blame the person. The person did it because of things they witnessed, their genetic makeup, and all of that. So I don't know if you want anyone listening, Robert Sapolsky, go listen to any podcast he's done. He's got a few books. I've never read his books, but I've listened to his podcast on like free will and all of that. And that's where it comes actually more interesting, where it comes into play, is because your Usain Bolt or anyone actually that achieves something.
Yeah.
There's no praise in it, because they achieved it because of their genetics, because of their makeups, because of everything that has built them to be that person. They aren't praiseworthy, you know?
For sure.
So that's where it becomes interesting.
I'm
because
with you. It's very interesting. I'll definitely go listen to those podcasts.
So like, yes, you can be like, that's incredible. That's amazing. They are superhuman to be able to do all that stuff. But it's just like, well, they're not better than anyone else. The same way someone that commits a crime isn't worse than someone else.
Yeah. Yeah, we can have another podcast about the crime, because I've also got lots to say about that.
Yeah.
And we'll just hang on that for now. I want to change the subject a bit. And I was head judge at the last HYROX in Johannesburg.
Firstly, thank you for your free ticket for Cape Town. I appreciate that.
Anytime. And I saw you compete. You competed. I didn't know you as well as at that stage. And you competed with a friend of mine who I had done another endurance event with, Richard. And you guys came running into the wall ball station. And you guys were just machines. HYROX, let's first talk about HYROX. Are we classified as a sport yet, in your eyes?
Yeah, I would say it's difficult, because when I think sports, I think your classics like rugby, cricket, soccer, tennis, those kind of things. So
Not paddle, hopefully.
No. I actually have yet to play a game of paddle.
Don't, you're just going to injure yourself.
And I might enjoy it and then get addicted to that because that's what I seem to do. Anything I enjoy, I get addicted to.
Hybrid athlete, right?
Bro, so I mean, it doesn't take away anything from it if you don't call it a sport. You know, the same way I don't believe bodybuilding is a sport. Just because my definition of sport is slightly different. I mean, I guess you can call it a sport if you're professional and you're doing it. But I think the way I'm doing it, I wouldn't classify it as I'm a sportsman. I don't know. See, I don't know. It's also just semantics of what you define as a sport. You know, what your definition of a sport is. Like bodybuilding, I'll openly say I don't believe it's a sport. But HYROX, because there's so many different components in it, you know, with the rowing, with the running, because running I would obviously consider a sport.
Yeah.
You know, athletics, cross country.
You're feeling on CrossFit?
I don't know. You see, okay. I don't know. Like, I can't tell you if I think it's a sport. I mean, I think it's incredible what those athletes can do. And
CrossFit's obviously, like HYROX has got the running, CrossFit's got the weightlifting.
If CrossFit can be considered a sport, absolutely. HYROX, yes, and vice versa. But I don't know. I don't think the difficulty goes away or the impressiveness of it, regardless of it being a sport or not. You know, I mean, I know people that play club rugby that are terrible rugby players. They're still playing a sport. So I guess you could call HYROX a sport, even if it's largely done by amateurs, because it is. Yeah. I mean, running's a sport and it's largely done by amateurs
too, yeah.
So I guess you could say HYROX and CrossFit is
a sport.
So
it's taken South Africa by storm. Yeah. It's taken the world by storm, actually. I know it's HYROX world champs at the moment in Chicago.
This weekend,
Yeah. So it's taken everyone by storm. Everyone wants to do it now. From the person that has been sitting on the couch, which is great. It's getting people in the gyms. Mentally, it's helping people also that weren't doing sports before. Anyone can do HYROX. Not everyone can do CrossFit. CrossFit has got technique to it, otherwise you're going to be injured. But HYROX, it's got the 6 disciplines. 1, 2.
There's 7 stations, right?
Yes, I've just said a blank. It's ski, rowing,
sled push and pull. Guess you can kind of put that in one. I don't know.
Farmer's carry.
Wobbles.
And the wobbles, 7.
And running.
8-ish. 8 disciplines, let's call it that. It's the same disciplines at every event. I know you don't train those disciplines. You train different disciplines. Do you think HYROX is going to start fading away because it's the same competition all the time? Or do you think it's just going to grow stronger and stronger?
Yeah, that's where I think like the longevity of CrossFit, because there were so many variations of how things. I mean, I don't know CrossFit very well, but I've seen.
Have you never been done?
I've never even done a single CrossFit session in my life. Okay. Yeah, but I've been like, okay, well, just before I started HYROX, I went to the battle, and that event that they did, there were so many different, things within the competition, like, and different teams and singles and all of these things where it was very different movements and very different styles of competing within CrossFit, whereas HYROX is set in stone. I mean, if we look at CrossFit, the longevity there, it's been going for a very long. I can't tell you when it started, but it has been, on the forefront of alternate style of training, kind of thing.
It's had its ups and downs, obviously.
Yeah, it's been trained. Yeah, it has ups and downs, but it's pretty much always been there, and it's always had its cult following. Yeah. So HYROX, I do think, will probably do the same way and perform the way CrossFit has. Obviously, now there's a massive boom. I think it's just because it's something different. It appeals to the ADHD in me, which is really nice. And I think that's also what's really nice. I mean, just last night, my mom phoned me and she was at gym and she said she really enjoyed what the personal trainer made them do, where they were doing a little bit of this strength thing. Then they'll get in the treadmill and run a little bit. Then they'll do this strength thing. Then they'll get in the rowing machine. I'm like, but that's why. Now you see why I enjoy HYROX so much, So, I mean, my 59-year-old mom is enjoying that style of training, and she's never been a massive athlete, So I think the barrier to entry being so low, I think it's going to grow. I do think it's going to have the longevity because of, the brands that they've got around it. and the sponsors and all of that. And, I don't think it's going to obviously maintain its similar popularity that it has now. I think it will still grow, but I do think it'll level out and maybe it depends if other things come in. We've seen Deadly Dozen. There's the Ascend thing. I'm doing it next weekend. The Ascend, whatever, which is also very similar. I can't tell exactly what it is, but it's also basically the exact same concept. So I do think it'll keep going and it'll do well. I can't tell you because, previously I've just was headphones on, hoodie on, bodyboarder, walking on the treadmill on an incline. So my eyes were so shut to any other, I say sport, because let's call it a sport. I wasn't exposed to anything like that and watching it and seeing its dips and it's going up and all of that.
I want to get onto the ADHD subject now. So hold those thoughts about ADHD.
We'll put a pin in it.
I just want to finish the whole conversation about HYROX because I'm sure all the new HYROXs out there getting ready for HYROX Cape Town are asking questions. What does Jesse do on race day? Take us from the beginning to the end of that wall station where you cross that finish line.
I can only tell you because I've only done one.
Did you not do two?
Joburg. I signed up for the HYROX gym, I think like just after. Okay. Or I just signed up and obviously it was like a week before, so I couldn't do the comp.
You killed it the way you did.
Thanks, bro. I appreciate it. No, Rich and I took it very seriously. We did like 4 or 5 simulations before we did, 4 CrossFit sessions a week. So we were taking it very seriously. I wouldn't say I'm taking it as seriously now for the one for Cape Town, but that's also because it's solo. I'm enjoying my cycling so much. So I'm trying to just do everything. On race day, we competed in the evening. It was actually late. I think we were on like 7:45 in the evening. So it's a long...
It was a one-day HYROX.
Yes. And my brother was competing with his wife early in the morning. So I was there from like 8:30. So I had 12 hours almost to just kill time.
And it was chaotic.
Yeah. One mistake I made, because the way I eat is I fast. So I thought, okay, well, let me fast until like 2:00. Then I'll have a meal, and then I'll maybe have a meal like 2 hours before the event. And I didn't feel I was fueled enough when the race was going on. So I definitely will not fast on the day now. So I won't. So that's a mistake that I learned. I've done races, I've done cycling races, I've done endurance things, but never starting at 8 p.m.
Okay.
So I didn't really, and it was more difficult than I thought it was going to be. The simulations I did, I was like, oh, okay, this is going to be chilled. Then on race day, I don't know why. It just felt so much more difficult than any of the preparation I'd done. So feeling wise, I will feel myself better going into it, now in Cape Town. On the day, I just watched my brother. I was on my legs too much. I was on my legs for like 8 hours. And then I was like, no, I actually just need to go to my car. And I just lay in my car, put my feet up. So I think that's one big thing, especially if you're competing later in the day. Make sure that those legs are, elevated or at least not constantly being used walking around the venue. Other than that, nothing really.
So I'm surprised that, and I realize you've got to eat before a race day event and stuff. But it just and I haven't competed in one. I've done simulations. I haven't competed in one. But it just actually blows my mind because in my head it's an 8 kilometer.
Yeah, it's an hour. And it's an hour workout.
Broken up.
Yeah, it's an hour workout. It's not that bad. Why would I need gels? Yeah.
And I was running with some guys from a HYROX gym not too long ago, and they were running in front of me, and they were talking about, oh, we're using this gel, we're doing this, and I'm like, these guys. Why do you use gels?
Come run a marathon.
Yeah, but it actually is a thing because you need to fuel.
Yeah,
and nutrition is important.
Yeah,
if you're doing a 5K, nutrition is important. Yeah. If you're going to do a sub 25K, it's even more important, I guess. You can't go do that fasted.
Yeah,
your body's going to blow.
I've definitely got the problem of underfueling, but deliberately underfueling. Sometimes to my detriment. But I would say why fueling in HYROX specifically is really important is because you are redlining for an hour. Yes, if you're running a marathon, half marathon, and you're really trying to push a PB, you might be redlining as well, but you're not
But you can take the breaks.
But you can take
there are
it.
breaks you
there's
can take.
downhills, there's certain things, there's flats, there's certain like flow states that you get into while you're running that you kind of mellow out a little bit. But with HYROX,
your heart rate's always
your heart rate
elevated.
is super elevated. Those weights are heavy. Those sleds are super heavy.
Your favorite.
Yes. When you're trying to push a 4-minute pace around that place, after just having pushed and pulled and, rode and lunged, I mean, like trying to find your pace after doing those lunges, it's so difficult. And it's so fatiguing on your glycogen stores that it just saps out any energy that you've been storing. So that's where going in understored and underfueled is just going to set you back a little bit.
Okay. Yeah, that's very interesting. ADHD, one of my favorite subjects. Was spoken in the previous episode with Dale a little bit. You have obviously figured out how to make it your superpower.
I like to believe so.
And I think that's the biggest thing with most people, kids especially, who get diagnosed with ADHD. I'm ADHD. I've never been diagnosed. We didn't have those things those days where they do brain scans and MRIs and all of that stuff to diagnose you. Like I've said before, my son is diagnosed with ADHD, and I keep telling him, let's figure out that superpower. Let's channel it. Otherwise, it is going to go towards addiction. It is going to go towards depression or whatever it might be, but it's not going to be a positive thing. So you have channeled that into all these things that you're doing. Hence, you're a hybrid athlete, but it's actually the ADHD personality.
The need of change constantly.
You need change constantly.
Yeah.
I'm the same. That's amazing that you figured that out. Were you diagnosed as a kid?
Yeah. So I was, when it was still split, because I think now it's just ADHD. There's no like ADD. So I was ADD. So it was more just, I couldn't focus. I wasn't one of those kids in class that was like jumping up around and doing all that. Like, yes, whenever I sit, like my legs, foot shaking, that kind of stuff. But for me, it was just, I could not concentrate on one thing. I could sit still and not concentrate, but I just couldn't concentrate. Okay. Whereas now, I mean, I can sit maybe for like half an hour while I'm working, and then I have to get up and walk around, and then I can sit down again, make coffee, move around like that. So I think the need to move and all of that and have stimulation has increased the older I've got, but my concentration has improved. Okay. And I think a large portion of that
is control.
And it's also just maturing, and it's also my diet, I think, plays a massive role. Reducing sugar absolutely helps fight against, the symptoms of ADHD and just accentuate and stopping those, symptoms from accentuating because of, sugar. Because sugar, I think, and what I've seen and what I've read is definitely, well, we know sugar's not good.
Yeah.
Although it tastes amazing. Amazing. We actually spoke before, and you said, and you asked me, have I ever gotten into like any certain like serious addictions? And yes, I lied. Sugar, bro.
Sugar can be a bad addiction.
Sugar is, I think, it is the most addictive substance on earth.
And people don't realize they've been addicted to it.
People don't realize, but absolutely sugar is every single person on earth that's ever tasted sugar, which is every human, even in the poorest countries, you've tasted sugar, is addicted to sugar.
No,
There's
sure.
I know, no matter how well I've been dieting, if I just taste one block of chocolate, is that block of chocolate going to be enough? Never, ever. It doesn't matter who you are, how well adjusted you are with, and your mental associations with food. Our human bodies just crave more of that substance, and it's so that for me, reducing that definitely helps. I've seen, if I have a bad weekend, my ADHD might increase a little bit. So the diet thing helps. I think also reframing how I viewed it, ADHD itself, not thinking, okay, well, it's bad, because, I mean, we know just through what we've seen on social media, most people that are, say, successful, because successful is very subjective, but that have successful businesses, that have achieved good things in sport or whatever, a large portion of those people are ADHD.
Yeah.
And they've channeled that into a good thing, as opposed to a bad thing. But I think it was also not beating myself up if I fell into a negative ADHD spiral or whatever. You know, it wasn't, okay,
Which helps,
well,
and I feel the schools actually beat the kids up about that.
yeah,
The
no,
schools
absolutely.
have actually created the negative stigma to it.
Yeah, no, without a doubt. You know, because our schooling system, you know, as we know, there's no real better way to do it because there's never come about a better way that's been universal and adopted by everyone. But I don't think it's, you know, a conducive environment for people like you and I, your son, to actually sit down and learn, and to learn about themselves, and to gain information and glean what they can from those teachers. That sort of environment isn't a great environment for, you know, people with ADHD. And I think when you don't maybe have the sport, or you don't have certain passions, that's when you can get addicted to certain substances, or addicted to, you know, anything that maybe has a negative impact on you. So I think I've always just been fortunate to be able to channel my need of stimulus in a positive way. And I think that goes back to the causes and conditions and why people become who they are, because I saw, okay, I've got, you know, this predisposition to need constant change. I channeled it into sports. I saw results from that. I got praise from that. So, well, of course I'm going to continue doing this.
For sure, yeah.
Whereas if I hadn't done that, I might have gone a different route. And, you know, the feedback I might have got from getting into drugs would be like, yo, I had a really great time last night. Maybe I feel bad today, but I had a really great time last night. I want to have that feeling again. So I was just always fortunate to have...
dopamine's coming from somewhere else.
I was just... I just, by chance and luck, because a large portion of this life is just luck. The family I was born into was 100% luck. The school I went to, everything was luck. And fortunately, I've just, within the realms of decisions I could make, the feedback loop I got was just, you know, going more towards that positive. And it hasn't always been like that, you know. It hasn't always been like, okay, let's make the best decision. I mean, it's not humanly possible to always make the best decision. But I think it's also just realizing, and as I've got older, I've gotten better at it, is if I choose the negative feedback loop, don't beat myself up about it. Because the more I beat myself about it, the more aversion I've got towards it, the more I push it away. So when I do it again, it's more negative, and then it just, you know, you're just reinforcing that.
Your personality is just going to
reinforce and stick, and my mind's just going to stick on that. And just getting away from beating myself up about things. I think that's been the biggest thing as I've matured. And any decision I made that I think, okay, that wasn't the smartest decision, not to beat myself up about it. Be like, okay, I am human.
And I like that. If anyone takes a message from this episode, is don't beat yourself up about everything, or beat yourself up, but don't beat yourself up for a long time.
Yeah.
Get over it and move forward.
Yeah. If I've got an ex watching this, because, you know, in relationships, obviously they see the worst side of you. If I've got any exes watching this, they'll probably be like, how does Jesse forgive himself? Not because I did terrible things, but because of how much they used to see me beat myself up.
Yeah.
They'll probably think, like, I promise you, I was so negative.
You're hard on yourself.
I was so negative about anything that didn't go my way. I was so negative about, you know, anything that I didn't do that was furthering me in a particular way. If I made a bad decision to have, you know, a few drinks or have that burger or have this, I would beat myself up, and they would know I was beating myself up. And it just became so negative, focusing on the negative, that when there was negative, it was worse. So I think that's the biggest thing, is just...
And did that spiral through into the relationships?
Yeah. So I would say, like, my personality was, okay, this isn't working. How can we fix this? How can we do this? How can we do this? How can we do this? That's not right. This isn't cool. Let's fix this. That's wrong. That's wrong. That's wrong. And you're constantly just thinking about what's wrong, that you're not thinking about what's right. I mean, we know a large portion of mental health can be improved by just focusing on the good.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're constantly thinking about the bad, everything's going to be bad.
For sure. That's why, and sorry, Dr. Lawrence, but psychiatry, psychology, there's good in it, but sometimes it's not that good just to go talk about the bad things all the time.
I think psychologists are incredible to help you improve your introspection in a way of understanding yourself, and then obviously touching back on the not beating yourself up for it. You know, okay, I maybe can't, and this is genuine, in my past relationships, I haven't been able to show affection very well in public. Okay, well, why did I do that? Okay, maybe because of X, Y, and Z. Okay, well, you know, that's why I didn't show affection. But also, I mean, there's an Alan Watt quote where it says, you are under no obligation to be the same person you were 5 minutes ago. And I like to live my life like that is, yes, maybe I wasn't super affectionate to girlfriends in public previously, but I mean, who says I can't just be that affectionate person now? I mean, why? Why? Okay, I was like that because of X, Y, and Z. Okay, that doesn't mean I have to be that person.
How old are you now?
29.
When did Jesse figure all this out? It's such a... I'm just sitting here listening to you thinking, if I worked this out in my 20s, geez, where would I be today?
Bro, I think it's a lot of... Because, as we mentioned, our society has changed. There's far more access to this kind of discussions, self-help type thing. And speaking of self-help, there's a lot of self-help books here. And I've actually got away from self-help because, yes, it was beneficial for the time I was going through, but a lot of that self-help was reinforcing the negative. And it was becoming an addict to improvement. And that's also negative. If you're constantly fixated on trying to be better, I mean, how selfish is that? You're constantly thinking about yourself.
You're going to be alone for the rest of your life.
You're constantly thinking about yourself to be better. I mean, the happiest people, and I saw a video on it, but they were citing certain things where the happiest people are the people that are doing something other than themselves. I mean, you know.
Giving service.
I mean, even if you are running, you aren't there, a large portion of the time you do, but you aren't there thinking about yourself as much. You aren't thinking about, you know, yes, obviously we sometimes thinking, okay, cool, that person's going to see my Strava time. So you are selfing in that way where you're thinking about yourself, but you are doing something beyond yourself. You are, you know, focusing on something other than just sitting there and be like, okay, how can I be better? How can I do this? How can I make sure that I've got the best business skills? How can I do all of these things? As opposed to just do. Don't try and, you know, reinforce what you are. Just be, you know. And that's a lot of the stuff I've listened to is a lot of like Buddhism and all of that kind of stuff. And I think that for my mental health, the Buddhism aspect of it has improved my mental health the biggest way out of any other self-help type thing. I've done. A lot of Stoicism as well. That was my entry into self-improvement. But then the Buddhism and learning about certain things about like your consciousness and all of that really helped me not try to focus on myself as much. Because, I mean, we are constantly talking about ourselves and thinking about ourselves and, you know, Flip, why did I say that to this person? You know, what is this person going to respond if I'm late to this message? Like, how selfish are we? Actually, we're constantly thinking about ourselves. But if you're thinking, okay, no, I need to message that person so that I can get those clothes for those homeless people. I need to do this. I can do this. That's where happiness comes. It doesn't come from, okay, cool. Yeah, that person saw my Strava time. Oh, nice. I saw that girl like my Instagram post. That's not where happiness comes from.
No,
happiness comes from seeing your child at the sports game, seeing them finally improve on this tackle.
And we forget these things.
Yeah.
As humans, we forget these things. And just the stupid thing, I was talking to a friend and he was going, Jesse, your podcast, Shark, it's, you know, growing, your Instagram page is growing overnight, etc. You know, well done. We love what you're doing, etc. And I said to him, please remind me. He was saying about the good that you're doing, etc. I said, please just remind me of that all the time. Because I'm going to forget that. And my personality will forget that.
Absolutely. You know, you're gonna see 400 views. Okay. That's more than last week. 600 views. Okay. More than last week. 600,
what happened 800. On TikTok with Dale's, with the last episode?
Yeah.
He got 60,000 views on TikTok.
And now that's like, okay, 60,000. Yeah. Like, the next one, I need to beat this. The next one, I need to beat that.
I'm already thinking.
Yeah.
I was sitting here while you were talking, nature, this is going to be the best reel ever. Like,
I saw you smile, the one thing I said.
Just back on the Buddhism, have you ever been to the Buddhist temple in Broncos Road?
No, I haven't.
Do yourself a favor.
I've always since, you know, listening to a lot of podcasts and like downloading these meditation apps and stuff, and I want to go on like a serious retreat, and I've said I want to do it so many times, but I just never done it. So maybe I don't want to do it, because you are what you do, not what you say you'll do. So who knows? But I want to go on a proper retreat and, you know, take time to try implement the certain things that I've been listening to and studying and reading and stuff. But, you know, to your point, I haven't been there. But I think in a large portion of meditation, and the biggest thing that I've learned about meditation is, you know, it's not about the little time you sit there on the mat and focus on your breathing and all of that, because that's not what life is. Life is this. Life is when the clients are difficult. Life is when things aren't going right. Life is when things are going great. You know, life is in your waking life. And that's what meditation mainly is. It's just, you know, I can be sitting here I could be sitting and working, and then I get a message from a client, and then my heart rate elevates and I start getting stressed because I forgot to do something or whatever. You know, meditation is just sitting there, taking a breath, listening to the noise, you know, feeling your body on the chair and realizing, like, I'm okay. Like, I'm fine. There's nothing wrong. Yes, maybe there's a little bit of stress going on, but right now, like, what's actually wrong? You know, I can add to the stress, or I can just notice the stress. And noticing the stress is, yes, I'm feeling stressed because I want to have a good impact on my clients. I want a positive relationship with them, and I've made a mistake. So yes, I'm going to feel stressed, but to not identify with the stress and then think about the stress and then think about a reply and, oh no, I should have done this, man, flip, I'm such an idiot for not responding sooner. Like, just forget that. Yeah. Just be like, yo, I'm feeling stressed because of X, Y, and Z. Like, that's understandable.
It's an amazing skill to have.
And it's tough. But it can happen anytime, you know? And that's also where just like, you know, Bruce Lee's be like water, my friend, where it's also, and it's not just go with the flow, whatever happens, happens. It's also the not beating yourself up about it, because like I used to, not terrible road rage, but I'd get very angry at a taxi, as all South Africans probably do. You know, I'll get
our friends out there.
Yeah, I'll get very angry. And even if it's not a taxi, even if it's just someone in a very nice car or whatever. Okay, well, also we get just as angry when people in nice BMWs and nice Mercs. Like yeah. So I would, you know, initially I would get angry, and then I'll just ruminate on that and just constantly be like, oh, this guy's such an idiot, man. And then it just completely offsets me. Yeah, just completely. And then I come in and sit with you, but because I was so negative then, I'm slightly less happy with you. I'm less open, like, and it just spirals.
And let's be honest, that taxi driver's having a great day.
He doesn't even know.
He doesn't even care.
And the best Buddha quote about anger, it's anger is a dagger with, no, it's a flower with a honey tip and a poisoned root. You know, it feels good sometimes to be angry.
Yes.
It feels great. But the roots of it is just all negative. You know, there's a little bit of, there's honey on the tip of the flower. It's great. It's amazing. Sometimes even sadness. Sadness sometimes can be empowering in certain ways. And I'm not saying we must never feel sad, because I mean, life, you're going to feel sad. That's going to happen. But it's all rooted in negativity, actually. If we, you know, anger can feel good, but it's just rooted in negativity. So going back to the Bruce Lee thing quick is be like water. It's also, if I do see myself responding negatively in a way that I don't want to, it's allow myself to respond like that. I'm responding like that is because I'm beating myself up for being negative.
Yes.
Because of causes and conditions, because I want to be, so like everything happens and we make decisions and we do things all because of prior causes and conditions that have happened in our life. So whatever you do, it's just okay, sit with it, notice it, and realize that it's going to be like happiness, sadness, whatever. When you are really sad, you know you're not going to be sad for the rest of your life, but in that moment, because you're identifying with the sadness, it feels like that's what life's going to be like. Yes. When you're happy, you know, we're not thinking, okay, when is this happiness going to stop? But
you also don't think it's going to be for the rest of my life.
We know it's not going to be
for the sadness.
We know it's not going to be for the rest of our life. So when you have an emotion that isn't enjoyable, just sit with it, because it's like, this isn't going to last forever,
Yeah.
which sometimes easier said than done. But I think the more you practice and the more you do it, the easier it becomes.
Just 29 years, you're a wise young man. Eh?
I don't know about that, but
Wow.
I can regurgitate a lot. Let's say that, maybe.
No, but regurgitating means it's stuck in your brain, and that's where it needs to be.
It has, my happiness has improved a lot, but within that was also a lot of stages of why, like, it all started. I don't even know how long we've been going for, bro. Sorry, I don't want to hijack this.
No, you carry on, please.
A lot of it
You've
started.
got time. I know the owner.
I know the owner. There's no clients after. It's fine. I think a lot of my self-help and, you know, trying to discover why I feel certain things was because I was, and I think it's an ADHD trait, where I was just like, is this what life is? Like, this is boring. Like, you know, you get a new car. A second later, the novelty's worn off. You get in this relationship. If it doesn't work, that's gone. You know, that bit of excitement. If I eat badly, I get fat. If I this, like, the impermanence of life is sometimes very difficult to understand and accept, because anything that can come can go. Absolutely
Even
everything.
good and bad times, I believe.
Absolutely.
That's my saying.
Yeah. Like, and that's also partially, well, very liberating, because you know that, yes, that good times can't stick around forever, but then that also means that the bad times can't stick around forever. And also, I mean,
And we've got to remind ourselves about
constantly, because our minds will make us want the good only and to push away the bad. But I mean, if there was no bad, nothing would be good.
Yeah, before we end off, put you on the spot. And now I'll give you time to even think about it.
Don't.
One thing people don't know about Jesse Sebastian Pretorius. Spill it now.
Yo, okay. I might actually need some time to think. Well, I think, tell us, how was Comrades, bro? Your audience wants to know.
Yeah, Comrades was a rough day for me. And those of you who have seen, I think it is episode 3, Marco Campus got his medal.
I saw that, nice.
But we'll get him back here to talk about his comrades. I was so chuffed for him. I was tracking him all the way while I was running. Maybe I shouldn't have been looking at my phone. It would have helped.
But also maybe that took away from the pain you were experiencing, because you were focusing on that a little bit.
So I had some knee pain that I started the race with. And that flared up already at 10Ks. Really flared up at about 40, 50. So that took the race and made it, I got my money's worth for my entry fee, and did it in 11 hour. I might be wrong, but 26:30, somewhere there. I finished. I promise I'll never ever pull out of Comrades ever in my life again. In 2023, I pulled out of the last down run. It took me a year mentally to come back from that DNF. I didn't think a DNF would hit me so hard.
And it's interesting because it's like the most difficult race pretty much you can do in South Africa, but it affects you. Like if you pulled out of a marathon because you were sore, you wouldn't be like, oh, well, I need time to, you know, get my head right or whatever. Like you'd be fine.
Yeah, but
and it's understandable that you pulled out of the most difficult race, but you beat yourself up more for it than an easy race.
No, for sure. And I also think it's the way the race is marketed, the ultimate human race, etc. But I didn't train for almost a year. I went on drinking sprees, party sprees. Like my mind just, and it was all because of one DNF. Business went bad, whatever I was involved in. Luckily not to the point where I didn't relapse in my gambling addiction, luckily. But yeah, I just said, I'm never pulling out this race. They need to pull me off this road. I'm not pulling out. And there was a stage where I was thinking, I'm not going to make that cutoff. I won't lie. I think it was around 81, 82 Ks, and I said stuff the knee pain, and I pushed, and I did about 5-minute 20 kilometers for about 3 kilometers, average paces, just to make up some time. But yeah, I walked through the finish. It was an amazing race, amazing finish.
That was this past weekend, right?
Yeah, Sunday.
How was it walking now?
Yeah, the knee pain's there. I've recovered. So I'm quite blessed, to be honest. I recover from these ultra things quite quickly. Love the way he's changed this podcast around. I recover quite quickly from like day 3. I'm okay. I can run again. I haven't run again because of the knee. I need to still check that out. The knee pain started from on the Mad to Run adventure from Joburg to Cape Town, August last year. It disappeared. I thought it was shoes. I changed shoes. I went back to the old Essex I was using.
What did you run now, comrades?
Essex Nimbus. But on Mad to Run, I was in the Hoka, one of the Hokas, which had a 5 mil heel drop.
The Bondi 8?
No,
or the Clifton?
The Cliftons. Yeah, I was in the Cliftons, which had a 5 mil heel drop. And I know the Essex have an 8 mil. And everywhere I Googled, obviously Google's your friend, it said knee pain on the 5 mil
really?
is a common thing. So I figured it was that, and it went away. But yeah, it showed up again, and we'll figure it out. But we'll be back next year.
But you did it, and you want to be back next year.
Yeah, and I've realized there's comrades, and I'm sure a lot of people out there that do comrades feel the same way. As you got to just carry on doing that every year. I don't even think it's an addiction. I think it's just a thing that helps you in life because you keep on training. Training needs to start. We're under a year away. You should start training now already again.
I think it's also because, your propensity to be able to handle difficulty is high after doing that. But as we know, like anything, if you stop dieting, you get fat. If you stop training, you get unfit. Your propensity and your ability to do difficult things also drops again.
Yeah.
So you need to constantly, unfortunately, be always pushing yourself and subjecting yourself to those kind of extremes if you want the extremes and difficulties of life to kind of be okay. Because I think, the moment you stop doing those difficult things, the small little difficulties of life become bigger.
Correct.
So I think that's why,
hard.
Yeah, that's why you have to continuously do those hards. And I do think obviously you need to have some time off from doing ultras, but you get it. It becomes easier to do the ultra when you're constantly doing ultras.
For sure.
So you do need to, then keep going.
You can drop it, like you said. Take time off doing the ultras, but then do the 10Ks.
Yeah. Try PB10s.
Sub 50 minute 10K is hard.
Yeah.
It's not easy to run sub 50 minutes.
Yeah.
Same with the
so it doesn't have to be 11 hours of difficulty,
running,
but it can be difficulty in the sense of doing PBs and that.
So yeah, next on the cards, I'd like to do Ultra Trail Cape Town, and I know you've done it. I've done.
Nice.
I did the special edition. I think it was like just after COVID, where they did the 2 loops, the Atlantic loop, and they called it 2 things. It was the UTCT special edition. So maybe I convince you to do Ultra Trail Cape Town.
Yeah. What was the distance on the?
So the one loop, so it was a 50K.
Okay.
It was just COVID. They were lying trail running in COVID.
Where did it start from?
What is that school's name?
In Dudno.
No, it started. No, Newland side. It was on a rugby field.
Okay.
Started and finished on the same field.
So did you go? You just start and then go through like Kirstenbosch?
Yeah. So the one loop. So you could choose. So some people only did the 25K. So it was like a figure 8 loop. I'm going to lie to you if I tell you.
But it was like 50-ish Ks.
Yeah, if you did both loops.
So then you would have run a large portion of the mountains that I did for my 55.
Yes. Yeah. I think a lot of it was the UTCT track.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I'd like to go back for that. I've got some unfinished business at Otter. It's just crazy, guys. Please, I know it takes a lot to organize these races. I've got a running company as well. But drop your prices.
How much is Otter now?
Otter, my first Otter was $5,000. It's gone up to just under $9,000.
Yes, and that's no accommodations. It's
nothing.
Just,
for a Joey person, you still got to go book and plate.
Yeah.
Or
nutrition,
somewhere around
shoes, gear.
No, it's crazy. And yes, trail running is expensive because it takes a lot to arrange.
Yeah. A lot of people have to get the routes right and aid stations in weird places.
But there's no road closures.
But that's a lot.
I know road running. The biggest cost in road running is road closures.
And that's still, and you still only have to pay like 300 to 500 rand.
Yeah. And yes, those have also gone up.
I understand.
And everything does go up.
Yeah, I understand in road running, maybe like you got your 10,000 people doing the race or whatever. But with trail running, maybe you got like 100 to 150. So I do understand the slight more that. And then also the conservation fees and all of that needs to go into and paying the farmers. But $9,000.
No,
That's a lot.
It's a lot of money to go run 42 Ks,
Yeah.
or 43, whatever it is. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that you can do like a Bergen Bush or a, one of those like even the trail running ones where you can get a tent, you get 3 days worth of food, and then you get, certain like fruits and all of that for free, with your accommodation, with your food, with the trails.
Yeah.
For like $8,000.
Bergen Bush is on the list.
That's a lack of cycling event.
Yeah.
What's the running one? It's also Oxpacker.
Oxpacker. That's
but it's the same people.
Same people. Yeah.
But that's a bit easy.
Oxpacker. Yeah, it's up and down.
So obviously, I mean,
Oxpacker's a jewel.
You can kill yourself doing the 23 Ks on the last day or whatever. But when you're paying 10K, you don't really want to only do 35 Ks in a weekend.
No, for sure.
Like if you're going out to the Drakensberg, you want to be running a good amount of mountains.
You want experience. Talking about that, we've got Reino Grissel coming up soon on the NDA, who holds the record for the Drakensberg Traverse, him and Ryan Sands. So that's going to be an exciting episode.
Try to get Ryan on, bro.
We will. Reino will organize that afterwards.
Yeah. I guess that's what's good about podcasting is that networking.
So the thing is, Ryan's obviously based in Cape Town. But he does come to Joburg. There's a few guys that we're busy talking to at the moment that are based in Durban and
I might need to steal some of your guests, bro. You do the work for me. I'll just make sure when I see it, I don't ask any of the same questions.
Okay, back to my question.
Yeah. I thought of something.
Tell us. Spill the beans.
So it's not that interesting, but I like it. So I really enjoy analyzing movies and series. Like cinematography, and
like at school.
No,
like when we did the
kind of like that. Yes, kind of like that. Where I mean, in school, I think we did.
I'll never watch Strictly Come Dancing the same way.
Yeah, we did like Gladiator at Gatsby, I think, and then we did film analysis of those movies. I didn't enjoy it when I was young, but now I really enjoy. I'll watch a movie by like a particular director, and then I'll go on YouTube. And then I'll watch like a scene by scene breakdown of them talking about why they used this camera angle, why they did this. So I think that's
obviously where this passion comes in.
Yeah, so I definitely
People
like
can't
cameras.
See what I see, right? All the cameras.
So I do like cameras and lighting and all of that. And I also enjoy just listening to good written dialogue on a TV show. Like when it's really well written especially like when a comedy and the jokes are formulated in like a clever way where it's not like laughing backtracks, like your Big Bang Theories where there's laughing backtracks. And that's just like, don't tell me I need to laugh. Like, I don't want to pander. I don't want to be pandered to. I don't want I want them to assume that we're smart, like, so a well-written movie where there's lots of little nuances and there's, little callbacks to a different season where like the joke is actually really funny. If you remember that they said something very similar or they referred to something else. So like, I like to, there's a few videos on YouTube that I really like watching. It's called like the iceberg of The Office, or it's called the iceberg of like particular shows where they go down and they show you like the iceberg, obviously beneath the water, of like running jokes that keep coming back, or certain things where if you look in the background, there's always like little things going on. It's like that kind of stuff I like to analyze. And at a stage, I wanted to go and study like cinematography and stuff. So I didn't ever do that, because I could see that I could make money without studying it. I
was going to say, you put your passion somewhere else.
Exactly. So, but that's something that I really enjoy. Yeah.
Wow, that's very interesting. At 29 years old. Before we close this off, I know I'm going to get messages. And they're going to ask, is Jesse single?
I am not single.
Okay, sorry, ladies. Please don't send those proposals. He's not single.
Yeah, no.
Okay. He's not single.
I'm happily involved with a lovely lady.
Okay. You had to put that out there.
Yeah. She'll see this, so yeah.
Okay, he's not single. Please don't send me messages. I'm not giving out his number. I'm not telling you the address of the studios.
It is on Google though. If you did come,
book a podcast first.
There's a screening. You have to pay for the studio time, but then there's a few questions I have to ask to see if you're a qualifying candidate. No, I'm joking. I'm not single.
Jesse, you got an amazing mind.
Oh, thank you.
But at your age, 29, you are going to do huge things still in the business world, in the sports world. Keep doing what you're doing. I think something that you don't know about your age and myself is that your podcast actually inspired us to start a podcast.
Thank you, bro. That means I need to start doing more episodes because I've been terrible at it.
Actually, yeah. Can you start doing more episodes?
I do need to.
Yeah, you inspired us to do our first episode. We were looking at it, and it took a year to do the first episode, but I was watching yours all the time, the Middleway Pod. And there was another one.
There are a few changes, but now it's the Middleway.
Okay, so
it was just the radio,
and then
then it was the Inner Citadel.
Is that how you say it?
The Inner Citadel, because Marcus Aurelius, when I was still on like my self-help type journey, he's got a quote where it's, something to do. Can't even correctly paraphrase it, but it was more just, no matter what's going on in the world, your inner citadel is your mind. You can be at peace. You can be happy. You can, no matter what's going on in the outside world, you've got the inner citadel in your mind, because the citadel is like the temple, the church, or whatever it was back in, Roman time.
Those days, yeah.
But, you've got, your mind can be your inner citadel. Doesn't matter what.
It can be anything.
It can be anything.
In this case, it was your mind.
Yeah.
I love that. Okay, so it's the Middleway Pod.
Now it's the Middleway, because I'll just explain quickly. So I changed it because I was always doing things to the extreme, and relationships suffered. That was initially the biggest thing that suffered, when I was always trying to be the best in particular aspects. Then the middle way is just, you can be great without, greatness doesn't have to be defined by being the absolute best podcaster. You can be the absolute best podcaster, but if your relationships are terrible, like, that's not the life I want. Yeah. So I want the middle way, where you can achieve without going negative or overly positive.
Yeah, where there's no obsessive behavior.
Yeah.
Which becomes an abusive behavior in a sense, even if it's to yourself.
Yeah.
But don't change who you are.
Thank you.
Keep doing what you're doing. I say you're an inspiration to many that you don't even realize you are. Keep working hard. I want to see it. You did qualify for HYROX Worlds though, didn't you guys?
No, I think
Richard.
We were like 4 minutes off, so which is a lot. At HYROX, that's a lot.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sure. All right. Well,
our goal was to, but we never.
Okay. Well, I'm sure there's more coming up.
Yeah.
Go smash Cape Town. Smash those cycling events. We didn't talk much about cycling.
That's okay.
I'm sure we're going to do an episode 2.
You're going to come on my podcast, so we can go into all of it there as well.
Yeah, thank you for joining me today. It was amazing.
Thanks for having me, bro. Appreciate it.